Hi, my name is Edward and I'm going to be talking to you a bit about my experience as a student of Fine Art and Art History at Kingston School of Art. So I chose to do Fine Art and Art History at university because it was a course that allowed me to develop my studio practice and to explore my interests both through making and research in an environment which allowed me to access sort of critical engagement with other students and peers. This was done through sort of crits and seminars, which are sort of methods of evaluation where you get together in a group and you talk critically about other people's work, not necessarily negatively, mostly kind of positively actually, but you help to inform people's ideas and development in the future. This is a really important sort of development tool and sort of important skill to be able to bounce off once you graduate. That dialogue with other students is really, really important. It also allowed me to undertake historical study, which enabled me to research and develop analytical tools to progress my own interests and ideas in art history. Studying history of art is a highly critical and theoretical investigation into how artistic production came to be and how we can use the past as a way to sort of navigate the future. What I liked the most about combining the courses was the sort of way that they fed into each other. So, for example, history of art intellectualized my fine art practice a lot and allowed me to develop my critical thinking, my analytical thinking, and my fine art practice made my historical study and research more creative. So my sort of artistic interests have developed a lot since I finished my A-levels to when I graduated from my undergraduate degree. I was very much interested at A-level in photographic and painterly work. When I went to university, that very quickly stopped. When you study a creative course, there's this illusion that you're kind of paying for a certain freedom and that whatever you produce is sort of going to be graded well because it's subjective. However, this just is not the case, and developing your interests, your ideas, and the way that you create things sensibly is super important. For example, now I prefer to use sort of video, sound, installation as a sort of point of entry. This is one of my pieces from a previous sort of exhibition that I did. However, I've kind of now developed this kind of keen interest in digital 3D and graphic work. You might be really interested, for example, in a topic, and you might really want to do a certain style of making, but those two things don't match up. They don't look good together, they don't mix well together, they don't communicate well together, and they're things that we really get to work through at art school. So I'm really interested at the moment in technology and anthropology, which are sort of two subjects that go hand in hand. It's important to choose concepts and research points where there are lots of material. For example, lots of writing, artworks might be produced around that certain topic quite a lot. Just because it's a popular topic doesn't mean that it's not worthwhile. Also look into kind of things like institutional programming. There's so many organisations that do really diverse programs, whether it be sort of filming programs, lecture programs. Those can be really, really useful. I personally research mainly through text-based media, but I also find recorded lectures really helpful. And at the moment I attend a lot of sort of talks by curators and thinkers in the fields that I'm interested in, which can be really, really useful. I'm not physically making work at the moment, but I do consider research a practice in itself and a big part of my practice overall. So the most important thing that I learned while I was at art school was to value other people's perspectives. When somebody is critiquing your work, as I mentioned earlier in the kind of crits and seminars, for example, they might be giving you advice or telling you something is terrible. It can be a shock and it can be really disheartening and it can stop you producing work actually, and you end up just having a big stump in your practice. But if you start to take this kind of feedback really constructively, it will pay off in the long run. So, for example, the advice that you always thought was a load of rubbish might turn out to be something which defines your practice or your next move for the better. And that's something which you really can't put a price on. So yeah, really value other people's feedback. After graduating, I sort of made the decision not to, for example, go and pursue a studio, as many fine artists do and are really successful at, and instead started to work in galleries and arts organisations. At the moment, I'm working at an organisation which houses some studios, has a gallery space, also runs an international residency programme. And the kind of conversations that I've had there and the projects that I've been working on have really inspired me to look at my creative practice in a different way. And so in September, I'm going to be taking part in a course at Goldsmiths. It's the MFA curating course. And what I really liked about that MFA postgraduate course was that it looks at curating in a creative way and actually uses the art school model that I really enjoyed studying under at Kingston as a sort of guide for the 3 years that I'll be there. So my biggest advice to somebody who was thinking of maybe studying the same course as me or studying a similar course to me in the kind of art field, for example, is to not be too insular. It's really easy when you're doing something as self-orientated as having a fine art practice, his history practice, curatorial practice, but having perspective is really, really important. Start working, making plans, doing collaborations, applying to awards, schemes, residencies, sort of as soon as possible, because leaving it too long sort of makes it harder for you in the long run. Don't graduate without any experience outside of the course. It is really, really crucial.